Okay, so a lot of it is what is state-specific. Obviously, the state-specific resources that are available, and links to all of these things are available on the website. I created a big long list, and we figured that it'd probably be best to put them on the website instead of listing them out here because nobody wants to type in a URL.
I did a shoot at Screen Gems where I could have sworn they might have called it an FSO just because that's the lingo. Or is that, I don't know if it's something that like Screen Gems just provided, but they had people that weren't like on set all the time that would come through and walk around your set while you're shooting, and the PA's all scramble and make sure everything's up to code. And but I'm saying, like, what is that something Screen Gems provides? That's not a same thing.
Yeah, they have people. The studio will have people. They're not trained FSOs, but they, will walk through, and it's, everybody's job, right, is to limit the liability of your company, whoever you work for, right? Because if your business, your company goes out of business, then you're out of a job too, right? But that's one of the things that they like to do too, obviously, is to walk the sets to make sure that, obviously, when you're moving around stages and sets, people take down the fire extinguishers that are required by OSHA to be hung, right, not on the floor. That's an OSHA thing. I get it. You move things around. You have to do that because of how you're going to build your set. But it is, it's their obligation to make sure that fire suppression systems are in order, in working order, and are available based on occupancy. So, it behooves them to have somebody walking around to make sure that people haven't messed with things.
Studios in LA have fire departments at the studio on the lot that do similar things and inspect the studio on a regular basis. And then they also certify the sound stages, which are often converted warehouses into sound stages. So there's a certification program that the fire departments will do. But I'm curious, on location, do you get visits from fire or any other agency that, okay.
One of the other things that's kind of goes on is OSHA and industry in the United States, if you're doing a certain kind of business that has an expectation, a risk assessment, there's going to be certain kind of hazards, you're kind of expected to help take care of that rather than depend on the public sector fixes. So the best thing to talk about that is refineries. Most refineries where they're refining petrochemicals do not allow the local fire department on their property. They have to have their own fire department to be able to fight that and take care of it. So there's a lot of reason the studios, the old studio system, they all have an infirmary, they all have a fire department because that's part of, they've got this square mile of property that is having this industrial work going on, and they therefore have to have the way to take care of it. What's yours? Well, if you're going to bring somebody in, they have a rate just like anybody else.
Right. Yeah.
They just.
And how do you budget for it? That I have I have no idea how you do it.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Before you start up your construction mill, it's great.
Because
it's not just set, right? I mean, your construction areas are ripe with hazards. You need to make. I mean, there's a number of things, obviously, to look for. So it's not just, but it's all around. It's locations, it's construction mill, and it's sets. But giving them an idea, and it's always. I always think it's a really interesting debate. Typically the people who do safety in the industry were industry people, and then they got into safety. But I was safety and got into industry, and but everyone at the studios always thinks, it's better to take a location manager and teach them safety than it is to take a safety person and try to teach them this industry. And there's arguments for both, right? But probably by far, the issue or potential issue you might have with bringing in a consultant is that they don't know our industry and they don't know, but they might be very, very good at regulatory things. It's easy for them to forget the transitory, that we are moving around. We are not building, domestic domiciles. We are not permanent players in this. You know, this is a temporary situation that we're doing the best we can to try to, you know, work with local people and make it as safe as possible. But we're moving out of here, and we're going to be, you know, ripping this thing apart in 2 days. So, you know, but agreed. I mean, I would say, you know, as early as possible is the best time
Well,
to
and
get
like
somebody involved.
Margaret had talked about, you know, going in with the location people, because one of the biggest problems that Matt has to hear about, because I get calls from my members and bring to the safety committee that there's a problem going on, and if you have a location manager who's not looking at the location, and when the crew gets there, they start worrying about what's there. There's mold, there's other things that could have either chosen a different location or been taken care of before the crew shows up. Now the crew's complaining to somebody and you've stopped production for the day because you didn't go ahead of time. There was nobody there to set about. Whereas if you look into it and you have the location person there, then the crew shows up and they know that this is part of what they should do, and they're good to go. So that's, to me, that's one of, again, the dollar ahead versus what it costs you later on.
And don't assume certain things. People think, well, we're going to have a fire in here. If we wanted to, say, set a chair on fire, you have to have specific fire extinguisher standing by. You can't say, well, there's one out in the hallway there. We can just use that one. You can't do that. That's there for the building. You need to have a specific one. You need to test it beforehand. Pull the pin, break the seal, give it a burst, make sure it's going to work. Once you have done that, that little burst, whether you use it or not to put out the chair, it now gets taken out of service and it gets depleted and refilled and resealed and then put back into whatever operation. You can't just put it back on the back of the prop or effects truck and say, okay, this will be great for next time. Because in an instance that I had where I did get set on fire, idiot boy didn't check. And gratefully my camera assistant kept running, so they went to put on the fire extinguisher and it was empty. So it was still standing there on fire. Thankfully, there was no sound, so I'm cursing out my crew, and I should be cursing out myself. Thankfully, a very quick-thinking PA, because we love those PAs, right? They're great people, and came with a wet blanket and put it out. So you can't just assume, well, there's an extinguisher somewhere in the building, we'll just use that. You've got to know what your standards are going to be if you're going to do that.
And one of the things that a location manager would probably know, but Margaret may know this already, but I know in Hollywood, some AHJs do not allow an automobile with a gas tank into the soundstage. Not allowed. Okay? So you have to, if you're showing up with a car for a car commercial and there's a gas tank in it, what do? You don't shoot that day. So you've got those are the kinds of things that looking in ahead of time. So I don't know what the rules are here for.
Well, there's two different ways to look at it, right? Because if it doesn't have gasoline in it, then it's more prone to have vapors escape from it and could actually be more of a fire threat than the other. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those to all of us, I would. I'm speaking maybe wrong, but everybody believes that pre-doing it, planning, thinking ahead is the best way to do things.
So I'm going to continue with some of the things that probably you already know, but just in case, I'm going to go over these things about permitting here locally that are Georgia specific. All the links to all of this information are on the website. So public spaces here don't require a permit unless there's lane closures, it's a government facility or a park. Special effects and pyrotechnics, we talked about that earlier. It needs a permit through the local fire department, and they may require, based on what you're doing, to have a rep on site during the actual filming. Or a lot of times they will just have people come out and look at it if you do a dry run of it, and they will consider that to be okay. And then they don't have to be there for the day of filming. For firearms, real and props, those may need permits based on the local law enforcement agencies. Road closures, there has to be a traffic plan that's filed along with the production project request, the form, and sent to the AHJ. And all of these obviously are available on the producersguild.org. Go ahead. Yes, yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah, there's fees. Yeah, a lot of them do, but it's different everywhere. So, but I did the best that I could to, list each link to every city, everyone that I could find. So, it's obviously, go ahead.
If there were fees involved, And also with the fees also, sometimes, as Margaret said, they may require somebody to be their rep. Sometimes you have to pay for that rep.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not in Michigan County, but there are times that you may have to pay for the rep.
And it's just, if you're filming in Georgia, you call the camera-ready liaison in whatever area that you're going to, and they will facilitate all of those things for you.
Absolutely. Do you want to go ahead?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're producing in the state, you just call the camera-ready liaison, and they will facilitate all of that for you as part of the state program. They are paid through the chamber and through the tourism board. You do not have to pay them, and they will do a little bit of that, if not a lot of that, legwork for you for every production.
Are there any breaks on fire or police? Are there any, or parking or any other sort of city or county breaks with the tax incentives? I'm just, no.
Every single area is different, and there are parts of Georgia where they will facilitate a different view.
Okay.
How that local government feels about filming and feels about how that industry affects their economy.
Right.
It varies.
Right.
The Camera Ready program that Taylor was talking about is very unique. I believe Georgia's the only state in the United States that has this. It came out of actually our Fast Forward program with GPP, and the state took it over and grew it to this fabulous benefit for filmmakers in Georgia. So every county in Georgia, 159 counties, has a representative there. So if you want to go film in that local area, like Taylor was saying, you just go over there, talk to the camera ready person, and they can tell you and help you with all the paperwork for shutting down roads or all the permits that you have to have. Oh, the list is on the state website. There's georgiafilm.org. Isn't that it, Susan? georgiafilm.org.
What I will say is that, to be a little bit of the proverbial wet blanket, is particularly on a lot of the permitting side, and you were asking about cost and things like that, is that, and as well, it's not, okay, now it's working. But as far as the cost and things like that of permitting, is that the camera-ready liaisons are a helpful start, but the permitting regulatory apparatus is changing so rapidly in metropolitan Atlanta, and there are so many jurisdictions, because as people who live here know, the city of Atlanta is 1/10 of the metropolitan area, and there's so many cities and so many counties, and every single one has now instituted their new film permit, that the only people that can possibly keep up with that are locations people, because they deal with it every day, and the budgeting runs the gamut, the time ranges run the gamut. You know, some of them, City of Atlanta, you average about $1,000 a day on permitting. Some of them are free, but in my experience, the ones that are free are problematic because they don't get the job done. So it's constantly changing, and the short answer is no, there's not really breaks on cost regarding that, because I think a lot of the attitude now is everyone is there kind of looking for their piece, quite frankly. So it's my experience.
Yeah, just to reiterate with the safety issues about going to that liaison first, except for going to that city councilman. We had an issue with DeKalb. I go out and train some of the firefighters and bring them up to speed on what's going on with the industry. And they were letting me know that when location managers do the correct process by going to Decide DeKalb and doing their permit, then they get an email knowing that this road will be blocked off for production. You'll have some producers or some location managers who might know the people in Stone Mountain, and they go straight to that police department, and they work out a deal, and they close off the road. They had an issue where there was a big fire, and the DeKalb County fire people could not get to it. They were not notified. So like they were saying, there's other places or private businesses that can work out deals. It may not be a deal because somebody could have died because they had to take another 10-minute detour to get to that building to put that fire out. So, you know, I know everybody's trying to save money, for the budget and put everything on the screen. But again, then that's a private lawsuit. You know, if they found out that, hey, they didn't go through the proper channels, they shut off this road, blah, 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 3 children got burned up, that could be another issue for your project. So think about the community as a whole before making side deals with private cities that may not be under the Georgia Ready program.
Good. All right. One thing also, just looking at AHJs, a show where they'd put a rig underneath a bridge, and they had the nest of a falcon, and they ended up coming and doing Fish and Game came and put a stop to it because they were 50 feet from a peregrine falcon nest. So you don't know who may come and say what's going on. All right, so resources, Contract Services Safety Bulletin. Okay, we've told where those are, csatf.org.
csatf.org, and the bulletins, and then the hotlines as well. And I sort of joked about it earlier, but if you are on a show and you don't know if it's affiliated with the studio, or if you're just on a show and there's an issue, you can call the hotline. You get to me. Usually there might be a relationship between one of those studios and the show. Either way, I can help with resources to help address any safety concerns. So that's a resource for anybody to use.
Yeah. OSHA.gov is a great resource. There's lots of good things on it. Good publications, hundreds of publications to be able to download. Also have them in different languages, so if you're in need of that. But lots of good stuff, some PowerPoints, all kinds of things that could be applied to what we do. State OSHAs are really, some of them are really amazing. The Oregon State OSHA is really great. The South Carolina State OSHA is good. California's is okay. There's some of them that have really good publications that have resources to use that you can download and have stuff. There are other, because we're a FedPan. Yeah, but so you go to the Fed thing. Also, there are, one of the things I found is another government place to find resources is military field manuals, because they're free. We paid for them with our taxes. They have this one for rigging that's amazing, and you can download it and can give you some safety things. There's a risk assessment program that's really wonderful as well. So other resources. ANSI and ESTA standards, we talk about those. ESTA, and I think they've changed, it doesn't even stand for anything anymore. It used to be Plaza, and they were separate, and they came together and separated again. But it's a professional organization for the entertainment industry, not just us, and it has standards that are written for lots of things. There's a camera crane, it's not a standard, but there's a camera crane document for how to handle camera cranes. There's documents, like I said, on smoke and other things, and there are official standards that you can go look at. If you go to the ESTA.org, there was a pro site the insurance company has paid so you can get those documents for free. You can download those. You may have to sit through a commercial from ProSite, but you can get them for free. Okay? That's okay.
Working groups, like, for example, one of the issues that I noticed has come up a lot recently is use of fogs, obscurance, folks on set. And there is via ESTA, there is a fog smoke working group where you can get a lot of good guidance. And they have also a program that you can, if you're concerned or people on your set are concerned about fog or smoke or other obscurants being used, if it's mineral oil, if it's glycol-based, what have you, they will actually loan out equipment to you to do sampling on your own. So those are other resources to be aware of.
Is that a specific fog route that you're citing?
Well,
In Georgia?
no.
Oh, okay.
What it is ESTA is the secretariat for ANSI for the entertainment industry. So things that get done by the entertainment industry go to ESTA. They have the technical standards committee, okay? The Technical Standards Committee then has working groups for, if you have an interest in creating a standard for something, you ask and you create the technical working group, or the working group, then you have standards that are being written under each of those working groups. I used to be the co-chair of the rigging working group. There are lots of different working groups. Fog and smoke is one of them. Chain motors, there's lots of them. Also with the fog and smoke, they have a document for how to clean the equipment, the maintenance of it. So, because that's actually can be just as, there's a biohazard because you don't clean the smoke and clean them up properly.
Recommended standards for things where there aren't federal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they actually, the Indiana State Fair incident, OSHA mentioned the ANSI standard from ESTA about temporary roof structures in what the standard way of doing it was. So that's kind of the way that works. Just other industry standards? This is the last slide.
That's kind of it, but also, you know, the common sense. I mean, if there's a certain way they're going to do it, and why reinvent the wheel? The grips or the electrics or somebody may have done it this way already. Rely on their knowledge, their expertise. And if they look at it and say, I got no friggin' idea, then you probably want to call someone else. You have a question, sir? Stretch.
I've already also said, happy to answer phone calls from anybody. If you want to call me, happy to do that, because my figure is, if you're working on a show, there's probably somebody who is either a member already or is going to be a member someday. We don't want anybody hurt, so we're happy to do it.